Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Impact and Coffee. Tuesday, September 1st. This is the first one of September, on the first day of September, and we're back from a month-long hiatus. We had to take a break there for a little bit, just to kind of take a break. Taking a break is good because we're in a pandemic, and I think that's just healthy for a team of people who are busy working all their jobs and all the amazing stuff they do in our community. I'm Robert Nelson. I'm the program manager for Pivotal New Mexico. You notice that you're on mute when you enter the room. And I am also the co-host of Impact and Coffee. Unfortunately, our good friend Mariah Harrison has stepped away from our team. But one of our great team members, Michael Green, is stepping in her place. Michael, why don't you introduce yourself just a little bit?
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Green. I'll be stepping in for Mariah for a while, and then maybe we'll get Brianna, one of our new members, up and trained and ready to go. So it's pretty exciting. I am a program coordinator for the New Mexico Farmers Marketing Association. So I'm really happy to be part of this group to help promote nonprofit in our community. Thanks. And then I guess I'll pass it over to Brianna so you can introduce yourselves, because she's one of our new members who will be helping us organize Impact and Coffee from here going forward.
Thank you, Michael and Robert. I'm really excited to join Impact and Coffee. I was able to go to the live events at downtown, but this is my first Zoom virtual event, and I'm really excited. I work at Rio Grande Community Development Corporation. I'm currently the business manager, transitioning to the community engagement manager. So I'm really excited to hear all these resources that I can share with individuals in the South Valley, as well as the whole state of New Mexico. And I'm really interested in this particular episode too, because I used to be in the educational field too. So really excited. Thank you for the introductions.
Absolutely, and thanks for joining the team, Brianna. We look forward to working with you, and we're so glad that you're on board with us today. So Impact and Coffee, for those who've never been, is a welcoming conversation that works to build community within the nonprofit sector and beyond. Today is also Gratitude Tuesday. So Michael, is there anything that you're grateful for specifically?
I'm really going to take the easy way out on this one and say the cooler temperatures. I think that we've all pretty much been enjoying those the past 2 days. I mean, this morning when it's still 70 degrees outside, it's amazing. I have the windows open with a nice breeze going through, so I'm very grateful for that. Would anybody else like to share what you're grateful for? It's time.
Hi, my name is Cecilia. I'm with the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Conventions and Tourism, and I am grateful for having my job throughout all of this. It's just like, wow. I can't believe it. I mean, we're working hard, but I'm very lucky. Those are proud jobs are very lucky. Grateful for that.
Thanks, Cecilia. I appreciate that. I know I'm grateful for the weather too, Michael. I'm also grateful for the Impact and Coffee team. They do such really hard work. And throughout the month of August, we've been doing a lot of transitionary kind of visioning work and mission work. So there are some changes abound for Impact and Coffee, but we're all growing together as individuals. So I'm very grateful to all the folks, Brianna, Juan, and Aaron, and Destiny, and Jamie, and Michael especially, just for all their hard work this last month and to bring us a really great program at Impact and Coffee to all of you. We have some really great stuff happening this month and next month too, so keep an eye out for that. Why don't we do this? Why don't we shift to introductions really quickly? So we'll introduce our panelists. Folks on the panel, if you could just take about 2 to 3 minutes to talk about your name, the organization, and that you're working with today, and just what you're grateful for on Gratitude Tuesday. So I'll hand it off to Shelle. She's right next to me on the right. And then I'll ask Shelle, could you hand it off to either Jeff or Vanessa?
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Shelle Sanchez. I'm the Director of Cultural Services for the City of Albuquerque. It's nice to see so many familiar faces here. So, the city is, I guess, officially a nonprofit. We're also a municipal government. And one of the things I like to remind people of is that cultural services in the city of Albuquerque is one of the largest, and by other measures, the largest cultural services department or arts and culture department in the country. So we invest a lot into our cultural services here in our city. It's one of the things that makes me really proud. of what we do and how we do it. So Cultural Services oversees the library system and the biopark and the Albuquerque Museum and the Balloon Museum and Chemo and South Broadway and public art and all our special events and the Old Town Gazebo and Explora partnership. So it's a really big department with about a $40 million budget and 400 employees plus a lot of temps. So that makes me a very busy person on some days, but it makes me proud of the fact that our city invests and believes in these spaces and what they are for our citizens and what they are for all of the people that live in our city, and especially our creative core. So that's me, and I am grateful. I'm actually very grateful. We were having a quick check-in before. I'm very grateful for my family and my two young men. My two young sons who are now 19 and 21. And I've just recently been impressed with not only how they're dealing with the pandemic, but I look and see the choices they're making in their life and I go, phew, that was like, okay, we made it. And I'm just really impressed with who they are in the world. And I'm happy to like my young men. So that's my gratitude. And I'll hand it off to Vanessa, who's got younger children in the house.
Yeah, Shelle, I think we need to have a conversation and I need to know all your secrets. My name is Vanessa Bush and I am the owner of ABQ Mom. And ABQ Mom is an online publication for moms and families. We provide lots of guides and resources and articles for moms and families that are particularly geared toward Albuquerque. Like there is certainly no shortage of mom blogs out there, but there's not many that are locally focused. And so that's where we try to hone in. I have over 30 different contributors. So we try to find many different voices. And I think it's kind of special because you could be reading an article written by somebody you went to high school with or your next door neighbor. So it's kind of a special thing to have it just so community focused. And we just really strive to connect moms to relevant resources in the Albuquerque area, to businesses in our city, and probably most importantly to each other. I think that particularly being a young parent or a parent of young children can be very isolating and lonely, and heck, we're all isolated right now. And so we just want to provide a space that assures parents they're not alone in their parenting journey, that that the feelings that they're feeling are not from out of left field. There's lots of people who feel the same way. And so there's like a connection aspect of what we do as well, so that no mom in Albuquerque feels like she's by herself in her parenting journey. And I have, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful for so much. I'm grateful. I think I saw someone in the chat say this and I was like, oh, you took my thing, but that's okay. We can both say it because it's big. I'm so grateful for the teachers that my kids have. So I have a high schooler, elementary schooler, and a middle schooler, and they just all have fabulous teachers who certainly care about the content they're teaching, but really also care about my kids and our kids in this city, and are just really doing a fantastic job trying to support them emotionally as well as academically. So I'm super thankful for that. And I'm also really thankful that I get to do this job from my house and my backyard today because the kids have taken over inside. So I will pass it on to Jeff.
Good morning. My name is Jeff McConaughy, and I'm the Director of Policy and Communications for the New Mexico Out of School Time Network. And our organization supports and promotes access to high quality after school and summer learning out of school time programs throughout the state. We don't actually run programs, but we are connectors and conveners who try to bring people together to share their knowledge and expertise, discuss issues and challenges that they face. We try to support professional development for those heroes that are out there working with kids in after-school programs and that sort of thing. I guess what I'm thankful for is to have maintained health for myself and for my whole family. And part of that is I'm also thankful for the ability to work from home throughout all of this. And my wife and I have both been working from home. My 22-year-old daughter, who just graduated from college, is living with us, and she's also she's not completely happy that she's back living with her parents, but we're all managing to stay safe. My daughter has a friend who's an EMT in the Portland area, and so we get some of his reports from the front lines of COVID, and it's pretty scary. So it's not an inconsequential thing to have maintained health throughout this.
Thanks for that, Jeff. And yeah, good reminder of what's going on in the front lines right now. We still have front lines out there, so it's a really great reminder. I know I'm very grateful for a lot of our healthcare workers and a lot of folks that are still doing all the things every day during COVID. So why don't we just dive into questions? The first one is, we know that it's been a really challenging time this last 6 months for a lot of people, for a lot of organizations, for a lot of communities. Can you all talk a little bit about the challenges y'all are facing in your organizations? Shelle, you don't have to talk about the entire city of Albuquerque, but yeah, how are you, what are some of the challenges y'all are facing in your organizations and your work? And I'll start off with you, Vanessa, if that's possible.
Sure. So I think one of our biggest challenges has also been like a really great positive for us too. So I think we haven't faced a lot of the hardships that some organizations have faced because we are online anyway. And we have been online since the beginning. We're an online-based organization and community. And so the shift that everybody felt going online, we're like, hey, cool, but there's that Zoom fatigue that I'm sure many of you are feeling right this minute, where people are just done with all of the online resources and the online meetings and that kind of thing. So while we didn't have to pivot in that way so much, we have seen somewhat of a decline in like our maybe engagement online, just because there's so much now that's available and on the internet. So also a big challenge, I think, was right when we first started. So we kind of plan our editorial content way far in advance, and we had to just like shift as everyone did when things first started. And I think we were just really scrambling to get content that was appropriate for the moment out. And I still have things from February that were written that I'm like, this does not apply to life right now, maybe next year. And so they're just like kind of sitting in the drafts folder waiting to be published. So really those first few months of like just churning out content that was appropriate for the moment was very challenging. And also I think just parents they've got so many things and balls in the air right now, sometimes doing things for yourself, reading things for yourself, connecting for yourself, like that's going to be last right now when you've got kids at home. And so I think that engagement piece, once again, trying to keep parents engaged and realizing that it's okay to take a few minutes and connect online for yourself and not with your kids is okay. I also think another big challenge we face, I have a very large team of writers, and so it's just a hard time in our country, obviously. So one of our values is trying to be a unifying force for parents in our city. Like, we're not going to be that place online where people come and there's lots of fighting back and forth and that type of thing. That's just not who we're going to be. But we still want to talk about the tough issues, the hard things in life, and do it in like a unifying and uplifting and edifying way. And so because times have been so hard, because things are so polarized right now, maintaining that diversity and also that unity is definitely has been a challenge, a really hard balance.
That's helpful. Thanks, Vanessa. I appreciate that. And yes, the Zoom fatigue is real. Oh my gosh. Jeff, could you talk a little about what that school time network is dealing with?
Sure. So we've been working from home since about mid-March, and that's had some interesting consequences, like the fact that I'm here is partly due to that situation. Our executive director, Mai Sagbakken, unfortunately for her, is prone to migraine headaches, and being on multiple Zoom meetings every day tends to trigger those. And so she had one last night after a day filled with Zoom meetings, and was just not up to coming. So I'm stepping in. I'm the pinch hitter this morning. It also means that we have a couple of AmeriCorps Vista people working with us doing their year of service with the network, and we haven't even had the opportunity to meet them in person. So we've been meeting with them for 3 or 4 months, or working with them for 3 or 4 months, and haven't had a face-to-face meeting with them, which is doable. Certainly, it's going pretty well, but it's a really odd situation, especially for some of these young people for whom this may be their first their first work experience post-college, or something like that. The other thing is, as I mentioned in the introduction, we're connectors and conveners. We bring people together. So we've had to sort of figure out how to do that on the fly in a strictly online environment, over the phone and through Zoom. We did do certainly some of that in the past, but now that it's exclusively that way, it's a real challenge. Particularly for like events. We have an annual scholarship for young women pursuing STEM degrees and careers, and each year we've had a breakfast event with speakers and people coming together to network and support these young women, and we're trying to figure out how to do that online here in a couple of weeks, which is going to be a new experience. We also have our kind of signature event each year is our conference, where we bring together out of school time professionals to do professional development, workshop, hear some keynote speakers, that sort of thing. And this year that's also going to be online in October. And that's a huge multi-day undertaking. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to see how it goes. One of the things that we did early on with this is we recognized that the out-of-school time community needed a place to go to talk about what was going on for them and what other organizations were doing. So early on, we started having weekly listening sessions where people could come on and just ask each other questions, share knowledge, that sort of thing. They've started to be a little less frequent and focus mostly on specific topics that come up that people seem to be struggling with, like school reopening and how to deal with that. But we've continued to have those, and I think those have been very valuable for the community. We also spent a fair amount of time early on putting together some COVID resource pages for people on everything like childcare options for parents, platforms and training for platforms and how to do online teaching, curricula that could be either a take-home environment or done remotely, support for teachers and administrators, support for the businesses themselves, how to get them pointed to the right place to try to get like a PPP loan and to support their staff during these difficult times. So that's been pretty much what we've been working on. It's mostly just an adjustment to a strictly online environment, and also trying to meet the needs of the community during this particular very, very difficult stretch of time for folks.
Jeff, well said. Shelle, I'm going to kick it over to you just to round out this one question about challenges y'all are facing at cultural services.
Well, I don't think that necessarily the city or any of our cultural institutions are dealing with anything different than everyone else. We do have the benefit of a little bit more stable funding, although, we'll see how the economy goes because we rely on TRT taxes at the city. I think our biggest challenges really are this kind of need to discern how much to react right now and respond, and how much to plan for the future, right? So, and I feel like we're all kind of in that. You know, we have to pivot. I was kind of thinking, you know, we should talk, Robert, since you work for, you know, Pivotal New Mexico, because that's what I feel like we do every day. And, you know, we have to like pivot. We have to close our facilities. We have to open our facilities. We have to rethink what we're providing for the community. And we have to do that much more quickly and much more often, I think, than any of us are used to, definitely at the city. But I think that's just true for every single organization. And trying to figure out how many resources to put into this quick response that are going to be meaningful for people, because, you know, as Vanessa was saying, everyone's a little zoomed out, and the online space is pretty saturated, and we're trying to figure out how much people want that. When it comes to youth programs, I think this is kind of where our focus is right now, is making sure we're still providing meaningful outreach and education at the city, not just in cultural services, but figuring out what that looks like in this kind of hybrid space where some parents really need access to daycare and, like, you know, meaningful spaces for their kids to be in while they're physically at work. And for us to continue to do the things that we've done. So one of the things I'm passionate about is paid internships for young people of color, because I come from a field which has been leadership-wise, not necessarily worker-wise, but leadership-wise continues to be primarily led by white men, although that's shifting, but there's a lot of white women in these positions. And so the only way we shift that is paid internships. And we were really building momentum towards that. And so now we're like, nope, we're going to keep doing this work, even if it means our interns are in, little boxes on screens with us most of the time. But knowing discerning like how much to like put stuff to the side until we're back to normal times, and how much to put resources into big pivots in this space that we're sharing. I think that's one of the hardest things. And then just taking care of our employees, it's hard. It's hard to have essential workers and figure out how to give them the leave they need to take care of their families and manage people's health, especially when you're talking about 400 people in our department. And I think, so those are my two things. And it comes down to people, always people.
Thanks, Shelle. I really appreciate that. You hit on something that one of our team members just texted me in terms of questions. Could you all talk a little bit about what has changed for after school and out of school opportunities in the last 6 months? Shelle, you mentioned a little bit of it. Could you talk a little bit about what's changed for families a little bit more so in this time? And I'll go back to you, Shelle, if you want to kind of dig a little bit deeper.
Okay, well, I'll start with everything has changed. So so big thing that has changed is how many kids we can have together, right? So that changes the dynamics of where we can do it, how many paid staff we need to offer meaningful programs. So like just the logistics and the economy of it has completely changed. It's scary for a lot of smaller organizations to plan things because they don't have the resources if those rules change again, which we know they're probably going to have to shift at least 1 or 2 more times over the next 9 to 12 months. So that's really hard. The other thing that has really shifted is the level of comfort that some parents have. As much as they're struggling to not have a place for their kids to go, they also really struggle with the idea of sending them someplace. So there's this constant tension between what we want to have, and I think we see that also in different events, right? We want to go places, but we don't really want to go there. As long, we want to go and do something as long as nobody else is there. So it's this weird tension that we have in the community. But the needs of our kids haven't really shifted, and I think we don't know what to do yet. And a lot of people are trying things, and some things are working. Explora has continued to offer programs. Our family and community services has continued to offer out of school and during school right now programs. And the thing is, we just are constantly tweaking, adjusting, and doing the best we can in the moment. And I think that's the biggest challenge. And I think we have a head start on that just because we have more resources at the city. And I think our smaller organizations are constantly struggling to figure out what they can do with the resources they have.
Thanks for expanding on that, Shelle. Jeff, do you have anything you wanted to add to this? No? It's okay if you can't. I think we've lost Jeff's audio. While we figure that out a little bit, Vanessa, if you want to tackle this question, that'd be really great.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Shelle said, I think all of those things are absolutely true. And then on top of that, there are many programs happening, I know, online. And I have heard from so many parents that they're concerned about the amount of screen time. Even if it's really helpful and good screen time, it's just more screen time. And especially now that they're back in school virtually, and then on top of like the video game and TV time or whatever, now their extracurricular things are also online. And so it's just a hard balance. It's really difficult to know what to do.
Yeah, I hear that. Jeff, if you want to try one more time.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I would echo completely what Vanessa said, that people are definitely worried about how much screen time kids are getting. It really is. I mean, it has a kind of a jangling, fatiguing effect on people in general. And even though, you know, some kids, if they're into gaming or something like that, do already spend a lot of time online, this could be just additive to that, or displacing that, but still giving them a lot of screen time. So I think there needs to be some kind of a medium, or a happy medium between the online stuff and the in-person stuff, and trying to do things that are engaging and hands-on, so that they're doing something that takes them away from focusing on the screen for blocks of time. And I think that's something Shelle mentioned, Explora. They're a good example of an organization that does try to incorporate that kind of hands-on stuff that allows children to participate but still take their focus away from staring at something that's happening on the screen while they're making something in the background. So I think that's important to try to do, is to give kids something where they can participate without necessarily being just focally locked on to their computer screen.
Thanks, Jeff. And as someone who played video games for a large portion of my teenage life, I can totally empathize. I'm going to kick it over to Michael just to ask our next question.
All right, so this is kind of a follow-up to the challenges that you guys have faced, because you have mentioned lack of resources, unsure of funding, where it's going to come from, help with access to different things. So one of the things we'd like to know about is how your organization has partnered with other groups to address these challenges. So yeah, we've seen a lot of beautiful partnerships come up during this time. People have been very creative and innovative with what they've done. So we'd like to hear what you guys have done as well. So Shelle, I guess I'll start with you. If you have any great insight on any partnerships that you've been able to create, I'd love to hear about it.
I think, the city, especially cultural services, we partner with a lot of arts organizations all the time, year round. What I'm proud of is that we've been able to be responsive during this time. So for us, we were able to really listen to the arts organizations and many of those who are delivering programming specifically for youth and for out-of-school programs and after-school programs. And we just redid scopes. I mean, we rewrote practically every single contract that we had with arts organizations and with our nonprofit partners that were delivering services in the spring and over the summer and for the fall. And I think that's one of the most important things, is we have to all stay in conversation with each other. And that's really the key to partnerships at this point. And right now we're talking and listening and seeing what we can do for this year, now that everyone's a fiscal year, now that everyone's kind of figuring out what they can make happen. But I think the conversation and the flexibility is key to the partnerships, and listening and just being able to throw out everything that you had planned to do, both as a partner and as an organization, and talk about honestly what can be done and what will be meaningful. The organizations that have done the best work on that with us have taken a deep breath back and a step back and said, okay, what is our community? Who is our community? What do they need? There's a couple of arts organizations that I think to some people just kind of went really big. Let's get a lot of things online. Let's just push a lot of content out there in this virtual space. And other organizations went a little bit more internal and said, let's just really focus on keeping our community, the kind of the circle of people that are most supportive and the kids that are most connected, keep them connected to our organization. And that looks really different than pushing out a lot of virtual content. And so I think that's one of the other things, is just kind of refocusing what you're doing and being able to let go of a lot of things. And for us, as the city, as cultural services, we're very open to partnership. That's one of the things I brought in. That's who I've tried to be in all of the spaces that I've been in leadership. And so, I know one of the questions was like, if you want to partner with the city, like for us, you just reach out. You bring us an idea, and we try to partner with as many people as we can, and put resources, if it's people or space or contracts, we try to just do as much as we can in the community. So, yeah.
Awesome, thank you for that. Yeah, I think that the listening component of that is so important, and being able to have that open conversation and actually hearing what the other people want, what you can provide, and working together. So thank you for sharing that with us. And Deb, how about your organization? What all have you done to cultivate these partnerships during this?
Well, I'll talk to that on two levels, the national level and then also the local level. We're fortunate to have some really strong national level partners. Our principal funder is the Mott Foundation, and they actually provide funding to networks like ours in all 50 states. And so they have helped, along with the After School Alliance and the STEM Next Opportunity Fund, which used to be the Noyce Foundation. But anyway, they've provided a lot of expertise and guidance on how to interact with the CDC guidelines, information on policy and legislative changes and funding sources for things like daycare and out of school time programs coming out of Washington and that sort of thing. So that's been really huge for us. The Mott Foundation also recognized that a lot of their state networks were going to be having their conferences and having to move into a virtual environment to do that. And so they actually went out and purchased access to a platform that a lot of the state networks are either going to use for their individual state conferences or are going to work with other state networks to provide like a regional conference on this platform. And that's just enormous for us. I don't think there's any way we could do a 3-day conference with multiple plenary sessions and breakout sessions for workshops and things like that online in like a Zoom environment. As great as Zoom is, there's just no way that would have worked out well. And so this platform that they've acquired for us and the technical support that goes with it is going to go a long way to, I think, ensuring that the conference is successful even in this environment. Locally, we've been able to draw from a lot of our partner organizations, Boys and Girls Club, 4-H, YMCA, to bring them in for the listening sessions to kind of share their experiences and their knowledge, what they're doing, how they're approaching, providing take-home curricula for parents to do with their kids at home during the summer months, what they've done in terms of developing online content, and that sort of thing. So that's been huge. We also have a really good working relationship with the public education department. And so we've been able to work with them to create kind of a conduit of information as things have developed in the public education space, and get that out to our out of school time community to make sure they're up on changes in plans and schedules and that sort of thing as much as possible. So I think that's probably kind of, like I said, that two-tiered approach that we've had.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. I think the important thing you mentioned is sharing on both of the topics, is sharing of the technology for the conference, because without that, you wouldn't be able to do anything, and then also sharing of the curriculum and ideas and all that other stuff. So for sure, I definitely think that is a huge thing that we've kind of come together as a community to do. So thank you for sharing that. Let's see this one. Same question at you, Vanessa. How is your organization partnered with others?
I love the listening piece that both Shelle and Jeff mentioned, and that's a big part of it. But also, I think, I obviously have a team who is looking for those community resources to share with our audience, but we don't know what we don't know. So if you've got a program going on, we would like to know about it. We have a community calendar on our website, and anyone's free to post on that. So if you have an event, whether it's virtual or physical, we would love to add that to the calendar. But once again, we do want to share resources with our audience. And so you can certainly search our site, and if you see that there's something missing, please let us know. One of the big things we do is try to almost be like this isn't a great description, but like a substitute phone book for parents, because not many people are looking at the phone book these days, but we'll have guides to things either happening in town or going around. So tomorrow, for example, our pregnancy and postpartum guide releases, and basically it's just a one-stop shop for anything you might be looking for that's related to pregnancy or postpartum. But we have guides for just so many different things in the community, after school activities being one. So if you search our site and don't find whatever it is you're doing, please drop us an email and let us know so we can get you included on those guides, because they really get a lot of page views, a lot of eyes on them. So
awesome. Thank you, Vanessa. If you could share your website or calendar information in the chat, that would be a great way that everybody else can know exactly where to go, so they can, again, share, talking about sharing again. So that's awesome. So yeah, if you could just share your website and calendar information in the chat, that'd be great. All right, and I'm going to shoot it over to Robert, and he'll ask the next question.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks everyone. That was really great. I really appreciated that portion of our conversation. We're going to dig a little bit deeper. So, the pandemic has really kind of shine a light on a lot of things that are going on in our country right now, and it's been a tough time. We're going to try to figure out, what would you like to see change when all this is kind of over? And I know that we're never going to go back to normal as we knew it before. So we're going to look forward a little bit. So in a perfect world or an ideal world, what changes would you like to see from this time, either in the next few months or even next year for, the work you're doing? And Vanessa, you have a big smile on your face. I'm going to go with you first.
There's something, my husband and I have been talking about this a lot. Oh, sorry, my dog wants to be on the Zoom. But my husband and I have been talking about what we would like to see from our kids is, and I think all of the kids in our community that we have contact with, we look back to like our grandparents and the greatest generation, and we're like, who are our children? And what I think I see happening is them becoming the most grateful generation. And I think when all this started, I was so worried about, oh no, these kids are not going to get a good education, what's going to happen with them? And I think they're just going to be grateful for human interaction, for a hug, for even so we have some kids that we know who really dislike school, and one of them told me the other day, he said, I'm never going to complain about school again. I can't wait to go back. I'm never going to complain about it again. So I just think they're going to be grateful for everything. And I can't wait to see what kind of just resiliency and, I don't know, grit these kids are going to have because they have been through this challenging time. So.
That's awesome. Thank you for dreaming big on that one. Shelle, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I touched on it earlier. You know, one of my things that I've always really worked on and been passionate about putting resources to and bringing people to is these paid internship opportunities for young people of color. And I think what I'm grateful for in the pandemic, which I think many of us would agree can't really separate pandemic, Black Lives Matter, discussion around race. These things they all came together for a reason. And they have a huge impact on each other. And, you know, for me, it just makes it easier for me to make the case that we need to be putting resources into these opportunities. And so, like, while I have everybody on the screen, you know, paid opportunities for our high school kids and our kids that are in college in fields where they are not typically going to see themselves in leadership, this is the only way to change it. If you think back through your trajectory, your professional trajectory, these are the opportunities that set you up for the next opportunity. And, you know, a lot of internships end up being free, or, you know, they're free to the organization, but they need to be resourced and kids need to be paid, because that is the only way a lot of these young people of color can participate, because they have to work. And they have to be making money. So they're either going to get paid in an internship or they're going to get paid in a low paying job. So, you know, they can't, this is one of the problems with free internships or unpaid internships that are supposed to be great opportunities. So I'm just going to like stay on my soapbox for a moment, because it's a lot easier to have these conversations right now because people are much more open to having them. And it's not about, for me, it's about just finding all the organizations that can create one paid internship opportunity for youth. You don't have to launch an entire program. We had 26 paid high school and young college students this summer because we can do that through the city. But like my son had a small engineering firm paid him his first paid internship opportunity when he was a junior, after his junior year of high school, which was pivotal for him getting into a really prestigious Ivy League engineering program. So these are the things that we need to be doing and the places we need to invest, and it doesn't take millions of dollars to start some endowed internship program. It takes one or two really meaningful opportunities in every single organization and small business, and it's both education and it will shift the dynamics of who has opportunities moving forward. Okay, thanks for my little soapbox moment. Thank you.
I might give you more soapbox here in a second, so I'm going to round back to that here in just a second, but I'm going to go to Jeff really quick to talk about any changes he'd like to see.
Sure. Yeah, and I would echo the internship thing. That's something that we work with various organizations on promoting. Future-focused education, Department of Workforce Solutions. We've partnered with them on trying to make more of those kinds of internships and real-world work experiences possible for some of the older youth. I think one thing that we've seen and heard from some of our organizations is that going forward, they want to incorporate what they've learned about doing virtual, remote learning or distance learning into their regular programs, which we think is absolutely fantastic, and I'm hoping that really does happen. There, in addition to people that are underserved in communities like within the Albuquerque area, we also have problems with young people and children that are in very rural environments, and there just aren't many programs available for them. And it may not be practical, like say there's an organization that's doing a 2-hour workshop on how to build circuits, or doing a maker training or something like that. It may not be practical if it's a 90-minute drive one way for a parent to bring their kid into Las Cruces or Albuquerque or Farmington to participate in that. So being able to extend that out and do those types of programs remotely and incorporate the learnings from the pandemic environment into being able to do that, we think could be huge going forward. Now, unfortunately, along with that, and this one does cost millions of dollars, we've got to upgrade our infrastructure. But I'm hopeful that this situation has really highlighted that need, and that will help to put more focus on that type of infrastructure development for tribal and rural environments and things like that, so that some of these children in more remote areas have access to the technology. And in addition to that, something that I think gets lost so often is there has to be training to go with that infrastructure enhancement, not just for the teachers and facilitators, but also for the children. I mean, in a family that's maybe undergoing some economic challenges, they may not understand what a mouse is. You say double click on something. Well, what do you mean by double click? I mean, there's some just really basic stuff that needs to be communicated, and some training that's given to kids to be able to utilize technology and infrastructure once it's available. And I think that's a gap that is not getting enough attention right now, especially when you're not able to, sit right next to them and demonstrate and hold their hand, handhold through the training that they might need to be able to use the technology. So we've got to get better at that.
Jeff, you mentioned like a mouse. I haven't used a mouse in over 10 years.
Okay, well, maybe I'm showing my age. I don't know.
I'm like, whoa, man, a mouse! Oh my gosh! But Shelle and Jeff, you both hit on something that I've been thinking a lot about with this question, which is, are there, and Shelle, this might give you a chance to get back on your soapbox, is specifically, like, are there any policies that you'd like to see either from our city or from our state that would affect the work you do and help do your work more effectively? And I'll go back to you, Jeff. I know you mentioned the broadband or the infrastructure thing. Broadband is actually very important. There's about $800 million coming to our state for broadband, and we have to make sure that a lot of that is distributed equitably in rural communities, especially for folks who don't have internet. Yeah. So, you want to talk a little bit about that or comment on that a little bit?
Well, actually, I think I said everything I need to say about the broadband and building up the infrastructure to the kind of rural and tribal communities in particular, but also to some deserts within the cities as well. There are certainly areas where the internet connectivity is not where it needs to be. But I'll also talk about, just in general, our educational system. Something that we struggle with and that we'd really like to see is recognition of after-school and summer enrichment programs as one of the pillars of a really strong educational system. Certainly, the traditional school day is fundamental and foundational, but we've seen things like money going to expansion of the K-5 Plus program and to extended learning, and those are really worthwhile initiatives. But I think you get into diminishing returns when you try to just keep adding more and more to the traditional school day. And there needs to be a recognition that after school and summer presents an opportunity to do some really unique programming where you get to explore some things in the STEM space or the STEAM space, with some depth. You have the opportunity to participate in arts that aren't typically part of the traditional school day through like a YDI or somebody like that. You can do dance, you can do more music than you're used to, you can put on plays, you can participate in a school or community garden and do a lot of learning that way. There are all these different opportunities that are different enough and have a different feel and a focus and are more hands-on than a lot of the activities that happen during the traditional school day. So we'd like to see that acknowledgement and recognition of programs that happen outside the normal traditional school day and funding that goes to that from the state level.
That's great to know. Thanks, Jeff. All right, Shelle, it's all yours. One more time if you want to.
Yeah. So, well, just on the policy front, the cultural and creative core is, we're not really known for policy. Artists generally, that's not a space they spend time, but there's a really, Senator Tom Udall has been pushing for a while something called the CREATE Act, and this would really provide more resources for creative entrepreneurs, and it would divert a lot more opportunity through existing programs and additional programs through the Small Business Administration. The creative economy and these creative jobs are incredibly important for all of us, especially in New Mexico. But again, this is a place where there's constantly a gap when we go back to inequities. And so, when we put more resources into these spaces and we kind of bring the creative economy and artists and creative expression and design more into the mainstream and integrate it into other national federal programs, that just creates more opportunity for everyone. And we need to be doing that then at the same time as that we're prioritizing engaging everyone in our community, and especially our young people, because we can't make the changes that we want to see overnight. We have to make investments right now that we're not going to really see in leadership necessarily for maybe 4 years or 5 years or 10 years. I say that with great confidence because I have, there are young people who are not young anymore. I call them young because I'm not young, but young people who were interns for me 20 years ago at the National Hispanic Cultural Center who are in positions of leadership. So, it does very quickly make changes, but it only is going to happen in all of these fields, not just the arts, but in all the fields, if we're really looking around and intentionally creating these opportunities for our young people, especially in high school, when it starts to impact how they see themselves and where they see themselves in 2 to 5 years. And so with that, I will step off of my soapbox.
Thanks, Shelle. Vanessa, is there anything you want to round us out before we ask our last question?
I love your soapbox, Shelle. Cheerleading you on. I think that's kind of one of the things that we can do at ABQ Mom is be cheerleaders for these policy changes and these big changes. So I think keeping in touch with us and letting us know what's going on is really important. You asked a question a little while back about other changes we'd like to see for the future. And I wanted to touch on one thing, something that I think is very important for both nonprofit and for-profit businesses, honestly, is an idea that kind of meshing the physical and the digital, because obviously digital is not going anywhere. It's here to stay. And I've seen some organizations do some after school things during this time that have really done that. My kids participated in a little camp where we went and we picked up the activities, and I think Explore is doing this, picked up the activities and brought it home. And then there was also some digital time where they got online. I know some art studios are doing things like that where you go and you pick up your supplies and then you can do them. But there's this almost like this seamlessness of going to a physical space and also engaging with that organization digitally. And so I think that's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. And so figuring out what that looks like for your organization, I think it's really important. So just wanted to touch on that.
Thanks, Vanessa. I appreciate it. It is about 9:54, so I'm going to kick it to Michael for our last question.
All right. So, with the last few minutes we have, I'd like to know what our community can do for you today. How can we help from home? And moving forward, what are some creative ways that people can help nonprofits and/or arts and art communities? So basically, what can we do for you guys today? We'll go ahead and I'll shoot this one to Jeff first. how can we help you, your organization?
Sure. Yeah, one thing, I mean, obviously, donate when you can. Something that we run into a lot is large funders are interested in funding specific initiatives, right? And so often there's a gap to do ongoing sustaining work, capacity building, and to just sustain the day-to-day operations. So those donations can help with that when they're not specifically tied to a particular event or initiative. I would also say share your expertise. If you're a master gardener, offer to help out with a garden at the local elementary school, where kids can learn more about gardening and have that experience. Like Shelle has stressed, the internships. If you run a small business, reach out and take the time and effort that's required to help young people to come in and do internships or job shadow, or at least come in and talk to you about what the business is, what the skills are that are required. Something that always helps is for young people to recognize when something from their education actually really does have real world application. You tend to pay attention a lot more and be more excited about learning things that you know you're going to use. So I think those are the kinds of things that I would say. Share your time, share your money if you can afford it, and share your expertise and skills. That's how I think people can help the most within the community.
Awesome, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, sharing again is very important. Shelle, if you could go ahead and answer that question as well.
Well, I'm from the city, I'm from the government, so we don't, usually we're just here to provide services and support the community. So what I will say is, because there were a couple of questions earlier in the chat about the budget, this year our city budget process is completely different because it's 2020. So normally the budget hearings that we would be having in May, we're having in October. So, if you the biggest thing to do to help the city is to be engaged. And so there are volunteer opportunities at the city. You can always support one of our cultural institutions, but also your input is really important. And there'll be public comment starting in October with City Council for the budget. So I know if you have questions, go as soon as the budget is posted, go and provide your input. If you want to know what programs are being prioritized, if you want to see things happen, like this is the time. This is the time to reach out to City Council, look at the budget. It's a weird thing because we're finalizing the budget and we're already in the budget. So this will be essentially the budget from October through July of next year. And then otherwise just reach out. I really think that city government is here to be as responsive as possible with the resources that we have. Honestly, I work on a team led by Mayor Keller where department directors answer their phone calls. We work on our 311s. We really work on listening and responding to the community and doing everything we can to be engaged. So, my request for you is that you reach out and talk to me about what's going on. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And just a reminder to everybody that all of our speakers today, their contact information is in the chat. So if you want to contact any one of them, you can always download the chat later. So that's great. So Vanessa, we'll have you wrap us up here. What can our community do for you? How can we help you?
Well, I think we want to expand our audience and expand our community. So anytime you see something on our site that is relevant to people that you work with or lead or are in your audience, sharing those things would be really helpful on your social media or maybe in your newsletters or whatever you send out. So sharing our content would be wonderful. And then also I want to make sure that we're representing Albuquerque really, really well. And that's an important goal for me. So if you see a voice that may be missing from our site and you know someone who can write about those topics or provide a voice, I would be really happy to entertain that. We accept guest posts all the time. So those are a few things.
Great. Thank you so much. Robert, do you want to go ahead and close us out this afternoon or morning? Is
Sure.
it still morning?
It's still morning, I think. Yeah. Big thanks to all of our speakers today. Big virtual round of applause for folks, and excuse me. And thanks to all of our audience members for joining us today after a long hiatus. I know August just seemed to come and go. And big thanks to all of our team, Michael and Brianna and Destiny and Jamie and Aaron and Juan. Thank you so much for all of your hard work for making Impact and Coffee happen 3 times a week. Our next one is September 8th at 9 o'clock here on Zoom. We'll be having a little conversation about education and the transition to back to school, because that's happening right now. So, and especially this is kind of like our education month. So I know we'll have folks from the Albuquerque Teachers Federation, we'll have somebody from PED, and then we'll have somebody from Families United for Education to talk about some of the transition that's going on in our schools right now. It's a very interesting time for us here in September, and we hope that you join us for our next Impact and Coffee. I hope everyone has a really great Tuesday and the rest of your week, and may all your lights be green. See you next time, all.